If you're wondering why I'm smiling, I have no idea. I just looked up and saw about half the faces in the congregation with a big smile on them, and evidently it's contagious. All right, serious stuff. Before we begin, Chris, would you lead us in prayer?
Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here this morning. Thank you for the beautiful day that you've given us and for the rain that started already and cool weather. It's a beautiful time to be in the valley. Lord, we thank you for our families, for our friends, for the many blessings that you give us. We thank you for our teachers, those that give us the opportunities to learn more when we're here. Please help us to take the opportunities when we're not here to learn as well, to do the things that we need to do to know you better, to follow you, and be closer devoted to you again. At this time, Lord, please be with the teachers of our classes. Give them a recollection of all the things that they've studied and bring to us. And may our minds be open and our hearts be free from the burdens that we experience in this life, to be able to receive these bits of knowledge and truth and apply them to our lives. We just ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. All right, Steve took the class last week. We were very grateful for that. And we begin today with our standard basic review. Maybe we begin today. Can we get the hour? Nope, it's not the battery. The screen. The hour. John the hour. Every once in a while I enjoy it when somebody gets caught cold turkey like that. It's good for me to know I'm not the only one. All right, we are studying the Gospel of John, and I hope you are enjoying what we are going over. When we think about the Gospel of John, we understand that John is not one of the synoptic Gospels. Matthew, Mark, and Luke are called synoptic Gospels. For what reason? Synoptic means similar. Matthew, Mark, and Luke tell the story of Jesus just pretty much a straight line. This happened, this happened, this happened. John really does not approach it this way. John is the 50-50 gospel. The first half of the Gospel of John is everything leading up to Jerusalem. The second half of the Gospel of John is the things that happened in Jerusalem. Now, we have emphasized for many weeks now chapters 14 through 17. This is the speech of Jesus on the night he was betrayed. Extremely important because he was letting them know what was ahead of them in the future. Things that would not be pleasant and things that would be pleasant. Chapter 14, he states his position and promises them the Holy Spirit. The 15th chapter, that's the chapter about relationships. And then chapter 16, he is lifting the mood of the room. He's told them he's going away. They're sad, but he reminds them of all the good things that are going to come about. And then finally, in the 17th chapter, he prays for himself that he would be glorified. He prays for the apostles that they would be sanctified. And there's one more little spot there that I know you went over this last week. I'd like to look at it very, very briefly. Verses 20 and 21 of chapter 17. And we come back to it because it is really critical in showing us something that was very important to Jesus. In John 17 and verse 20, I do not ask on behalf of these alone, but for those also who believe in me through their word, that they may all be one, even as you, Father, are in me and I in you, that they also may be in us, so that the world may believe that you sent me. Now let's think about this for just a moment and what we can get from this. Jesus prays on behalf of the world. He prays on behalf of all those who believe in me through their word, that they all may be one, so that the world may believe that you sent me. Now, condition of the religious world. We think about it for a moment. How many churches are there? When I was in my early 20s, I heard somebody say there were 2,000 different denominations saying that they were the church. And then about 15 years ago, I heard somebody say 10,000. Now, in a book I read recently, the number was 43,000 different churches. Now keep in mind, when we say church, everybody gets one. Whether it's mom and pop meeting in the garage with their 2 kids, that's one, or the entire Baptist denomination, that's another one. 43,000 different churches. And I don't know who's keeping the statistics. I don't know how you could. So if you went out and started counting, it's not going to come out 43,000 on the nose anyway. So I don't know who keeps statistics like that, but anybody with their eyes open can walk down the streets of Fresno or Clovis and realize that there is a tremendous amount of division in the religious world. I was in Starbucks a couple of days ago. A little incident occurred where having a conversation with a guy, and I almost felt sorry for him. Did he not have such an attitude, I'd have felt a lot more sorry for him. But, he got to talking, and he started out, and he's the kind of guy that's obviously kind of thought about some of these things, but he started out talking about how his Mormon father-in-law tried to influence him and talk to him. And then he got on to lumping in with Joel Osteen, and then he finally got to talking about Catholicism and canonization. You've had the conversation, somebody that wanted to talk but really wasn't that interested in listening, that kind of thing. But at the same time, you can almost understand how somebody like that would end up a ball of confusion. Because you look at what has happened in the religious world. Is it confusing? Was it the will of Jesus that there be 43,000 different churches? Yea or nay? You look at what he actually prayed for. I want them to be one. What kind of one? We all believe in God. That's all the oneness we need. This one speaks in tongues. This one says, no, we don't do that. We baptize infants. This one says we're Calvinistic. It's all predetermined by God. This one says, no, that's not true. But we all believe in God. We all believe in Jesus. That's all the oneness Jesus desired. What do you see in this passage? I pray that they may be one as we are one. How one are Jesus and the Father? Are they on the same page? Totally on the same page. That's the kind of oneness we're talking about. Now I understand, that's a high bar. That's be ye perfect as I am perfect. God is the bar for our personal behavior. That's the goal. What we are looking at here is goal as far as believers are concerned. I want them to be one as we are one, so that the world may believe that you sent me. The kind of unity that causes people to believe in Jesus. Now, this fella, mentioned from the other day, while I certainly don't agree with him, and would have liked to heard a few of his conclusions, which he never actually stated, when you get into something like that and you see this kind of a person, did he have help getting to where he is? He had a lot of help just from the religious world he's seen around him in the course of his lifetime. Now, what we do is simply state the goal. This is the way it's supposed to be. This is what the Lord wants, and as long as we don't see it, we know what we're working toward. Now, the first part of that, those who believe on me through their word. What does the basis of the unity have to be? The word of the apostles. So the effort that we make is simply to go back to the word of the apostles and do our best to say, this is what they actually said, this is what we're going to try to do. And we hope and pray that in the process of time, more and more people will get on board with that. That's what we're looking for. Comments? All right. Yes.
I was just going to say that the equation that's left out of most religions is the Bible.
Say that one more time.
What's left out of most religions is the Bible,
Yeah.
the Word of God. It's all put together by man.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple of hundred years ago, when we get to talking about creeds, people writing creed books, authoritative books, caused a lot of problems. The only solution you will ever see, and a lot of people don't even see it as a problem, but I guarantee you the guy we were talking to the other day saw it as a problem. And a huge number of people in this world see it as a problem. The only solution is you just stand firm and say, this is what the Bible actually teaches. Yes?
The guy also mentioned the other day that Jesus didn't write anything, and that these people wrote it from the Catholic Church that they wrote all this stuff down. So he really didn't believe what was written in the Bible. So he went to the internet. He started talking about all this.
And Netflix.
But he was actually hinged in the way we were hinged in. Of course, we're still hinged in to an extent because Ephesians said we were dead in Christ, but now we're alive in Christ now that we know the Word. But when you talk about these different churches, these different bodies, faiths, and beliefs, there is a church that I visited, denomination, over at other side of town. And in it,
This particular point, somebody stands up and says, but we don't agree. Well, so what? The key is to sit down and look at the Scripture and understand what God actually said. Now, this is the goal. Realize it's tough, realize it's difficult. But the desire of Jesus was that they all may be one, that the world may believe that you sent me. Now, as we go forward, let's all turn to chapter 18. We've come to the spot where, okay, we finished that speech, 14 through 17, and where we are now is kind of like on a roller coaster ride. I would liken it to this. Y'all been to an amusement park where you got about an hour in line? You're standing, and you stand, and you stand, and you go like that, and you go like that. And then finally you get to the front, and they put you on whatever it is that's going to carry you on the ride. And you get in, and it goes clank, 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 clank. Until you get to the start, then whoosh, there you go. Well, chapter 18 is the whoosh part. It took a while to get through chapters 14 through 17. In the beginning of chapter 18, all of a sudden we have furious activity. In chapter 18, verses 1 through 11, they come to take Jesus. And in John's account, it's like they come out of nowhere. They're not there, then bang, here they are. Jimmy, would you read chapter 18, verses 1 through 11? Okay. Starting here, and we're going to just frame it this way. If you have not really thought of it like this, think of it this way. You are going to see just an incredible presentation of courage. I mean, this is, when you actually look at what it says and think about it, it is unreal. Here's the city of Jerusalem. There's Jerusalem. Here's the Kidron Valley, the garden, right about there. And I know that doesn't tell you much, but just think they go outside the walls of the city, they cross the Kidron Valley, up into that region right there. And Judas knows where they are. He's been there before. Now, as we get into this, I'd like for us to notice that John skips a lot in verses 1 and 2 and in the previous chapters. For instance, John skips over the institution of the Lord's Supper. John skips over the prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane. John skips over Judas running up to kiss Jesus. How come John skips over all that? He's not one of the synoptics. He is putting things in that maybe others did not say, or putting an emphasis on things that we need to know that had not been covered in the other three. He is approaching it differently. Now, In the 3rd verse, who comes for Jesus? Let's look at this. Judas then, having received the Roman cohort. Okay, here's Judas. Now, a little subtle point, may not be worth much. We'll put it out anyway. Having received. What do you get from that word? That's a little bit tighter relationship than we might sometimes think. It's almost like, okay, here I am, give me the guys that I'm taking with me, and let's go get them. Yes?
When I think of receiving something, I think of, like receiving someone, I think of receiving someone that I invite to.
Yeah. You're in. I mean, it's the group. He received the cohort. What's a cohort? By the temple in Jerusalem, the Romans, well, actually Herod had built it, built a fortress to house the soldiers. The Romans actually had a fort right there in Jerusalem, the fortress of Antonia, named after Mark Antony, by the way. They got soldiers stationed there. A cohort is what we would call a battalion. And in the Roman army, a cohort was 600 men. Now, when you hear 600 men, what are they expecting? They're expecting trouble. Now, somebody might say, well, just because, it says the cohort, doesn't mean everybody in the cohort came. If you go down to the 12th verse, it says the chiliarch, the commander, was there. The head dude was with the battalion. Now, does the commander go out with just a squad behind him? This is a major movement of troops here. Judas receives the cohort. The chiliarch is with them in the 12th verse. And officers from the chief priests and the Pharisees, we're just going to say officers from the Jews, probably some temple guards, that kind of thing. Now, they came there with lanterns and torches and weapons. What's the point behind that? Why emphasize lanterns and torches and weapons? What are they expecting? They're expecting trouble. The Romans are used to the Jews blowing up in their faces. What do I mean by that? They riot over anything as far as the Romans are concerned. Now, the Romans Romans didn't realize it, but the Romans usually gave them a pretty good reason to riot. But still, Roman experience was this is a volatile, stubborn group of people. And so we got to be ready for anything that comes. Judas receives the cohort. That's a major troop movement, plus officers, chief priests, and the Jews. So the way this thing would have had to have played out, if you're a Roman commander, are you going to bring out the whole battalion just because somebody said, oh, maybe we ought to go get this guy? Or are you going to have a reason to move those troops? Somebody had to convince them that they had a problem brewing here. Now, doubt Judas could have done it. These guys could have. How do you think they painted Jesus when they went to convince them that they need to move the troops? Same kind of thing that you guys have become accustomed to in the past. This is something that could get out of hand. We are expecting trouble. Now, it's obvious they built Jesus up as being dangerous, an old political trick, an election year, no sides. Is it common to paint your political opponent as being a very dangerous person? that has been going on forever and ever and ever. We've got my opponent here, and you got to understand, these are dangerous people. You got to send a whole battalion out to take this guy. He's bad. Now, if you're the Jewish Sanhedrin, why do you really want the Romans to be there? Why do you want that cohort? Had they ever tried to take Jesus before? In the 7th chapter, they sent the temple guard after him. The temple guard came back and said, what? Nobody ever spoke like this guy. They had failed before. And they were intimidated by the people. And if the stories had gotten around, when they tried to take him at Nazareth, what did he do? Walked away through the midst of them. John the 11th chapter, just recently, word got out that Jesus had done what? Raised the dead. Now, if you're Jewish, you may be getting intimidated by all this. You send the Romans, and they're not likely to be nearly as intimidated. If for no other reason, they've got the cohort with them, but they are expecting some kind of trouble when they come to take Jesus. Now, and we know at least some of them are intimidated by Jesus. Look at verses 4 and 5. So Jesus, knowing all the things that were coming upon him, went forth and said to them, whom do you seek? Notice number 1. You ever notice the fact it said Jesus went forth and spoke to them? Picture that. Here comes a battalion of Roman troops led by the Jews, swords, and he steps out to meet them. Yeah, it's more nerve than I've got. But he goes to them. He steps up knowing who they are looking for and says, who are you looking for? We're looking for Jesus the Nazarene. He said, I am he. And Judas also, who was betraying him, was standing with them. Doesn't mention the kiss. That had already been recorded 3 times. But it does emphasize he was standing with who? He's with them. It's not uncommon for us to feel some sympathy for Judas. Poor guy. He just made a really bad decision. He was standing where he chose to stand. We will give an account for where we choose to stand. So when he said, I am he, they drew back and fell on the ground. I kind of doubt that those were the Roman soldiers that did that. I kind of think it's these guys who were afraid, physically intimidated by Jesus because of things that they had heard. Yes?
Scott, I think that's a term that may have been used common to the understanding of that day. It just means that they regrouped, meaning that they fell back and considered maybe what are we to do at this point? Because they weren't expecting a surrender.
Yeah.
They went expecting a war. So when he said, I'm he, then they were like, wait a minute, let's go think about this. What should we do about this? Is you sure? Should we arrest this guy? Is he someone portraying to be him, but really not? And so I think that's why
You got a point.
it becomes so evident why Judas' betrayal became the kiss.
Yeah. I will admit this. If I've got a battalion of troops behind me walking to get a guy, I'm not expecting him to step up.
Yeah.
That seems strange that he does.
It's been a common expression that was used for the saying of they regathered, they fell back, or they moved aside to rethink their thoughts.
And by the way, does it look like on the side of the ones coming to get Jesus, anybody's really quick to step up and take charge here? Who are you looking for? Jesus. Okay, it's me. Some of them fall back, hit the ground. Ask them again. All right, who are you looking for? Jesus. Now, in verses 7 through 9, let's look at this. Therefore he again asked them, Whom do you seek? And they said, Jesus the Nazarene. Jesus answered, I told you that I'm he, so if you seek me, let these go their way. To fulfill the word which he spoke, of those whom you have given me, I lost not one. Now, like we've said, the Romans are used to having Jews blow up in their faces and rioting. The 8th verse, I told you I'm he, if you seek me, let these go their way. Now, we can emphasize the care that Jesus had for the disciples. You know, he spoke of that in 14 through 17. You know, he made that comment, I haven't lost any of them. We can emphasize the care he had for them or look at it from a Roman point of view. And by the way, in these chapters, the Romans get more emphasis than the Jews do. From a Roman point of view, the guy steps out and says, let these go their way. And you were expecting a riot. Suddenly you know what? This isn't going to be a riot. He just separated himself from this group. We came to get this guy. Let's get this guy and let's get out of here because we don't want to see another riot such as we have seen before. Now, in verses 10 and 11, we look at Peter. Simon Peter then, think of Peter. At least Peter had the brains not to cut the ear off a Roman soldier. In verses 10 and 11, Simon Peter then, having a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's slave and cut off his right ear, and the slave's name was Malchus. So Jesus said to Peter, put the sword into the sheath. The cup which the Father has given me, shall I not drink it? This makes it look like the Jews are out front. Pulls out a sword, cuts off his ear. Yes.
I wish that you would address that. This part always bothers me in that the condemning of Peter comes with his denial. But at this point, Peter has made the truth of what he said. He said, Lord, I will give my life for you. And God said, no, you're going to deny me. But he, at this point, in moment in time, by that action, is saying, I'll give my life. I'm faced with 800 men around me, and I'm willing to fight.
He was.
So why do we always only focus on his denial?
I've heard that sermon preached a couple of times, and it's a fact. When you look at Peter, was he ready to lay down his life on this occasion? He was ready. But the only thing I can liken it to, have you ever been in a situation you were all gung-ho, ready to go get something accomplished, and you were told to back off and it just flat took the wind out of your sails? I was ready to go. And the powers that be said, no, we can't do that. And then, I can't do what I wanted to do. Can't do what I committed to do. The wind is out of my sails. What'll I do now? If I can't do this, what shall I do? A couple of hands. John? Yeah, we're going to link him up to the end of the 18th chapter before we're done. And Jesus' statement. 1 second. First, somebody, Ginger.
Well, I think when you're still standing there with Jesus, you still have that courage because he's with you, and you're going to try and protect him. But when he's physically taken away, you're at your lowest, your courage can fail you.
It can.
And I think that may be the two, once he was not in your presence, and you knew something bad.
The bad part's going to come later. At the end of the denial, Peter looks up and Jesus is looking at him. That was bad. But this idea of the wind taken out of your sail, I was committed to something, then somebody nixed my plan. Now what? There was a Sammy.
It's also not possible that Peter intended to behead the soldier and instead missed, because I don't imagine the soldier simply stood still while he was swinging his sword at him.
Say that one more time.
Is it not possible that Peter had intended to kill the soldier, but he missed?
Nobody aims in an ear when they're swinging a sword. Yeah, he had to have missed. And, man. By the way, we got the guy's name. We don't always list Bible characters by name. Why do you think this one got listed by name? Yes.
It also alludes to something that we kind of skipped over when he went forward to the Roman legion. He knew all that was going to happen to him.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to the fear of the unknown, but he knew everything, and it was far worse than
Yeah.
what any kind of death would have been. The Romans were there expecting a fight. The Jews, I think Kim was right, the Jews were expecting a fight. That's what they told the Romans to get them to arrest them. Peter was carrying a sword. He was ready for a fight.
They had two swords.
Everyone wanted a fight, and it would have solved a lot of problems for the Jews, putting him on trial if he died in a fight. It would have solved all the problems.
Yeah.
But that's not. This is a cup.
And it's an excellent point. If you're looking to set somebody up, that would have been a good time to do it. Yeah, really good point. Yes.
Some time ago, you were teaching us about how some of the Gnostics were thinking, and Josephus talks about that he was a man, and how that people didn't believe that he was the Son of God in the flesh. So that's just one. And the other, could you take us to the fear of the garden, the fear that was in the garden?
The only thing I can think of there is it was covered by three synoptics. It's not covered here. It's not even emphasized. We're approaching this here from the angle of raw courage. When it became time to go, you got the garden. Yeah, he's looking ahead. This isn't going to be fun. This is going to be bad. Wish you didn't have to. But it's like anything else in life. Something's coming, it scares you. But when it's time to step up and go, you got to step up and go. And that's what he's doing here. Peter, back to what Ken said a minute ago. Peter's going to stand up and prove the Lord's wrong. Jesus, you said I wouldn't be willing. I'm going to show you. The minute you tell Jesus or you're thinking in terms of, Lord, I'm going to show you you're wrong, how's that going to play out? He's not going to be wrong. Now, this stepping up here, yeah, that could have been potential catastrophe, but the Lord knew how to play the chessboard to make things happen as they should. Now, Peter is told to put the sword down. Now, once again, Jesus has said, let these go. Not going to be a riot. Put the sword down. What do they know? Not going to be a riot here. So he's going with them. Now, pardon me? I didn't say he wasn't afraid. There's a lot of times when we take a course of action, even though we are afraid, we say, this is what has to be. Yes?
I always look at the situation that Jesus had control of the entire situation.
Yeah.
He had control of the Romans, he had control of the Jews, and he had control of the Christians.
Yeah.
He knew everybody that's skin in the game, but he controlled them.
Yeah. Keep in mind, this is a plan that was formulated before the world ever began. You think it isn't going to happen? Okay. So Jesus is taken, he's arrested. And we'll just start making a little list here. All right, we got the arrest. They grab Jesus on this occasion. They take him. And where are they going to take him to? Beginning in verse 12. First person they're going to take him to. A fellow by the name of Annas. Let's read verses 12 through 14. So the Roman cohort and the commander and the officers of the Jews arrested Jesus and bound him, and led him to Annas first, for he was father-in-law of Caiaphas. You got to bind somebody when you got 600 soldiers. And led him to Annas first, for he was father-in-law of Caiaphas, who was high priest that year. Now Caiaphas was the one who had advised the Jews that it was expedient for one man to die on behalf of the people. All right, he is before Annas. Now, who is Annas at this? Is he the high priest? Technically, is he the high priest? No. He had been. His son-in-law was the real high priest. But by this point in history, that job was kind of bid out by the Romans. They thought they had a hand in who can make high priest. So strange things happened with the high priesthood. He did have moral authority as far as the Jewish nation was concerned. It's kind of like once a guy's been president of the United States, how do they always refer to him afterwards? Be nice. Okay. Mr. President. He's called high priest here, not because he's actually functioning, but he had the moral authority as far as the people were concerned. And here's the first one that they take him to. Now, why would they do that? Why first go to Annas? Now, I'm speculating. I could be wrong. I don't know what exactly went through their head. We talk about plausible deniability. We want to give somebody plausible deniability. What do we mean by that? Plausible deniability. I know you all know that term. You had to have heard it in politics. You leave somebody a way out. I'll do this, and I'm not going to tell the head man, so the head man can actually say, oh, I didn't know. The head man might say, somebody ought to handle this problem. So I go handle the problem. I don't tell him how. And then if that blows up, oh, I didn't know. That's plausible deniability. Maybe they hope that just going to Annas first would help if it stopped there. If you're Caiaphas at this point in time, Passover, do you really want to get your hands dirty? So we go to Annas first. Now, it mentions John 11, verses 49 through 51. Let's turn there. And the question is, why is John bringing this up again about Caiaphas? John 11 and verse 49, but one of them, Caiaphas, who was high priest that year, said to them, you know nothing at all, nor do you take into account that it is expedient for you that one man die for the people, that the whole nation not perish. Now he did not say this on his own initiative, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus was going to die for the nation. Okay. Did Caiaphas understand the ramifications of what he was saying? No. He's saying, you guys don't know anything. It is expedient. Caiaphas said that, not Annas. I'm just putting that here. It's expedient that one man die. If we don't get rid of this guy, the Romans are going to make all kinds of trouble for us. It's expedient. Now let's come back to John 18. Caiaphas was the one who had advised the Jews that it was expedient for one man to die on behalf of the people. Why bring this in? This whole trial is going to be about what? It's all expedience. What do we got to do to get through what we conceive of as a bad situation? We'll pick up here next week.